What's going on, guys? It's LSB and JJ the DJ back at it again, and today we're going to be discussing the NBA. And in regards to the NBA, what are we talking about, JJ?
Man, it's playoff time. We got the playoffs about to start after the NBA bubble regular season concluded with the play-in tournament between Portland and Memphis. It is now time to discuss these upcoming playoff matchups.
Yes, sir. And what's the first matchup, JJ? You want to start it off?
So the first matchup we'll go looking at will be from the Eastern or no Western Conference. My bad, don't want to mix those up. But
Well,
we have at 1:30 p.m. on Monday the first matchup. It will be the three-seeded Denver Nuggets versus the six-seed the Utah Jazz.
all right, sweet. And what's your prediction and analysis on that matchup, JJ?
All right, so this one could be interesting for a lot of reasons. Right now, I like when I was thinking about how each of these series could go. It's so many factors that could play into it. But for my prediction, I had Denver winning the series 4 games to 3. Yes, I thought this one would go 7, and here's why. Both teams are like always the wild cards of the Western Conference. You never know how good their potential can actually be. On one hand, you have Denver, who has Nikola Jokic as their head man, and we've seen the best games from him at times where he's absolutely dominant on the court, and then we've seen other games where you wonder where he's at on the court. So I think for him, he had a good playoffs last year, which was his first time being in the NBA playoffs. He averaged 25 and 13, so he has that potential to be a dominant force. But on the other side, for Utah, you got Rudy Gobert, who's in a lot of times the same situation. He has all the potential in the world, the talent, the size at over 7 feet, but there's been times where he hasn't showed us, his full capabilities. So I'm really
Right.
looking at that matchup. I'm really looking at that center matchup. Two guys that play the center position a different way because Jokic can ball handle, he can shoot from outside a little bit, whereas Gobert is strictly more inside, more paint, paint presence, shot
Right.
blocker, all those things. But I think Denver, I like how they have Michael Porter. I like Jamal Murray. I just think they have more going for them that would give them a slight edge and win in the game 7.
Mm, definitely. I agree with a lot of that. I would say my prediction isn't that much far off from yours. I actually predicted that Denver would win in 6 games. And the reason why I say 6 games is because there was just some news that was released. Michael Conley just left the bubble for the birth of his son. And the Utah Jazz made 2 big moves in the offseason, signing Conley and also signing Bojan Bogdanovic,
Yeah.
and he's not going to be in the lineup as well for game one. So the Jazz are currently going to be without 2 key pieces, and it's said that Conley is at least going to miss game 1 and 2 because once he leaves the bubble, he's going to have to quarantine for a little bit. So without your star point guard and also a key, what is he, a shooting guard slash small forward in Boyan, it's going to be
Yep.
hard for the Jazz to compete with such a complete team like the Denver Nuggets because, like you said, they have Jamal Murray, they have Nikola Jokic, they also have Michael Porter, they have Gary Harris, they have Will Barton, but also another key player that you didn't mention that had like a key, well, had a stellar showing in the bubble was a Bobo. We weren't sure if we were going to see Bobo this season, and then he came into the bubble. He's a big, long frame. He has a lot of like length. He was blocking shots like it was nothing. These players were like, "How is he getting to me so quick with these long arms? He can stroke it from deep, and he can show it from offense and defense." So I picked the Nuggets because I think they have a more complete team, and their bench I think is good. On the Jazz, I think they have like a few holes on their bench. Like they have Jordan Clarkson and they have a couple of guys that could score, but they don't have as much to go pound for pound, especially with losing Conley and Boyan. So I don't think if they get him back, I think it could go to Game 7. But currently, as it stands, I don't think the Jazz will go away. I think they can at least win 2 games because Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, I think they're stellar together, despite their bickering because of the whole pandemic and the coronavirus. I think that once it's playoff time, you set that stuff aside and you work together as a team and try to ultimately get a championship. So I predict the Nuggets are going to win this series in 6 games.
One more thing I want to add before we go on, because there's a lot that can be said about these games and these situations. I do want to add, though, why I see it going to 7 is because I think a lot of times we're a young team, while Denver might be the more talented team right now with, the Jazz missing, Boyan and, Mike Conley. I saw something about that when his son is born, and that's, good. But with the quarantine and with, this bubble situation, there is an amount of time before, you're able to come back and, play again. But
right.
Sometimes with Denver and, the quote unquote typical young team experience, it takes them, some time in the playoffs to, fully understand the nature of the situation.
Yeah.
So, but that's why every team, as nice as it is to have, young talent, you need that veteran guy. And in times like this, for Denver, they're fortunate enough to, we don't talk about this guy and people don't talk about this guy enough, but I'm looking at Paul Millsap. I'm looking at a veteran guy that he might not, play a lot because, they're going to want to put in, Plumlee and Michael Porter and, Grant, I think it's Jeremy Grant. And Bobo, like you said. So they have young guys that might play more than Paul does. But I could see in a Game 7 his influence still pushing Denver, in those crucial moments like a Game 7 where every possession, literally is of the utmost importance. So keep an eye on it. It's something to throw out there. Watch Paul Millsap.
I'm surprised if it goes 7 games. And I agree with everything that you said. And kind of, I guess going back to last season when they were in the playoffs, a lot of people thought that Denver would kind of like have a cakewalk, I guess, because they were like the 2nd seed, and they ended up losing. They were number 2, and it's just like, I mean, the playoffs are just so unpredictable. Like, you could have the best team and you could still end up losing to like a team that's inferior. It's just a matter of what team has the more heart and more drive to win the game. So I definitely understand that, and I wouldn't be surprised because say Denver goes up 3-1, I don't think it's going to be over after that. I think it still has the chance to go. Like, they may not keep their foot on the gas pedal because of their young team, and they may not be experienced to the playoffs, so that could open the door for Utah to capitalize and extend the series. But I definitely agree.
One final note, Denver did win the 3 meetings with Utah this past season. Denver did take all 3 of them. And so we'll see if, they've learned enough about playing the Jazz, but, it should be interesting either way.
Yeah, definitely. It should definitely be interesting. And that's why that matchup is awesome. It's a first matchup that I'm looking forward to as well.